Shalom, shalom, family. Shalom, family. Welcome once again to this stream on this day, on this 20th day of January 2019. My name is Uzi Alewi. I'm a teacher at Congregation Beit Da'at Kakma Obina. On YouTube, you can find us at Beit d.c.b, B-E-I-T d.c.b, and also on Facebook at Beit d.c.b, Instagram Beit d.c.b. Thanking you for joining us again tonight or this evening, and it's a blessing to be here with all of you as we you give me a second here as I'm trying to find the link to the stream and trying to load this up. Just as we get started, just make sure to share to your different platforms. Just to your different platforms and to everything that you're on. Also, let me know how the stream is looking. If the audio is good, if the video is good, please let me know before we go further along, because I want to make sure that is a good enough stream so that we could get the best out of the stream and what we're trying to do today. As we're going back into the topic, is the virgin birth a lie? And this actual stream is going to be a little bit more about contradictions and certain things that we see within the New Testament. This is what they don't teach you in Sunday school. These are things that you do not learn in Sunday school. So if you have a friend, a friend that's a Christian, someone who follows certain theology or has a certain way of life, and you know that they might need something like this, maybe I might be able to awaken something within their minds to make them see and understand why some people do not believe in or do not believe in the Messiah of the New Testament, and why they do not follow the New Testament. All right, so all right, great. Everybody said that the stream is great. So thank you once again for joining me. And as I begin to share this link, let me just share this link. Now, I'm trying to really get my live streams here to grow a bit, better, just like the ones on the d.c.b channel. I think that this will be interesting and informative. Like I said before, I'm going to try to do some Sunday shows for people who are involved mainly in Christianity and that look for something because they understand that this is their day of rest, or they understand this to be the day of rest. So maybe they'll be surfing on the internet. Maybe they'll be looking online for something that has to do with the Word of God. So just give me a second here as I share the link to my social media. How's everyone feeling out there? I hope that everyone is well and fine, and I hope that the Most High God bless each and every one of you with health, wealth, and all the things desirable in your minds and righteousness. Last time we touched on quite a few things, mainly the birth of Christ and the genealogy that's found in the book of Matthew chapter 1, Luke chapter 3, and then in the book of Chronicles, First Chronicles, right? We touched on all those things, and and I showed how it was. Just give me a second here as I share on my page. Give me one more second. Share it somewhere else. Just share it in all your groups. And so yes, we we touched on this genealogy, and we showed how there was a discrepancy within the New Testament itself when it comes to his genealogy. Um, who was the father of Joseph? Whether or not Jesus is of the seed of Joseph, which is supposed to be, he is supposed to be from the lineage of King David, but Jesus was never conceived by a man. Jesus was conceived by, or he was impregnated, or Mary was impregnated by the Holy Ghost. Thus, he never came from the seed of a man. And the New Testament has a verse that speaks about Jesus being of the seed of David. So we're gonna highlight all those things once again. Go back over them. Just quick highlights as we move on to the next part of this presentation, and we hope and pray. I hope and pray that you will be informed. You know, it's sometimes is as we gain knowledge and we gain understanding, sometimes it's difficult for us to understand what is it that's right before us. It's especially sometimes when we are trying to when we're moving from one way of thinking and one way of us understanding certain things, that sometimes it's very hard to try to adjust and do something new, because we are a people of habit. Human beings are a people of habit. So once we are ingrained with certain things, sometimes it's hard for us to change. For many years, we've been indoctrinated with the slave master's religion. We've been indoctrinated with Christianity. We've been indoctrinated with the idea and the thought that our Savior or our salvation came from a man that looked just like the people who oppressed us. And it's time for us to change that narrative, and it's time for us to understand and know that the Most High God is great. So someone say that the latency is off. Let me make sure that the audio, even if it's a little bit off, just bear with me. And I'm trying to really make this thing happen. But if the audio is good and it's not like, all right, I see that it is a little bit off, but hopefully that doesn't disturb you or make or throw you off. All right, just try to concentrate on what I'm saying, and just we're gonna go with that. So um, this is not to down anyone or to make anyone look bad, but this is just certain things as to why us as Torah only Israelites look at the New Testament the way that we do, and why we have so much trouble with the New Testament. Now, we understand that the New Testament, or some of us at least do, understand that the New Testament does have some parts of it do speak of some historical factors and speak of some historic, in a historical sense, some of the things that were happening in that time. Not everything that we see as historical did happen exactly the way that the New Testament says it, but we do know some historical characters like Herod, um, Pontius Pilate. These are historical people that actually lived during that time. So when we look at that and we examine that, then it brings us to the next point, as to what we're trying to do in building this understanding and making people know that there are many problems, many contradictions with the book, with the New Testament. One of the major things about the New Testament is that it doesn't say, "Thus saith the Lord." It's not replete with those words as in the Old Testament. In the Old Script, it's replete from the Torah, which is the first 5 books, which is the laws of God, to the prophets, to where God is speaking directly to his prophets, right, to speak to his people. And this is a very important part of building this concept of whether or not we're receiving the pure word of the Most High God. If it doesn't say, "Thus saith the Lord," then there's a bit of a problem, because a prophet cannot speak his own words. Let me change that. A prophet could speak his own word. He would just be recognized as a false prophet. But a prophet of the Most High God always comes with the word of God in his mouth, right? And always comes with the advice. He comes with the solution, and he's always warning the children of Israel to do that which is right before the Creator of heaven and earth. So these are things that we have to examine. These are things that we have to look over, and these are things that we have to understand. I hope that in the midst of us getting into this, that we understand that that the Most High God is great, and we must not put him before anyone. All right, we must not put the Most High before anyone. So this time also, for all of you that would like to donate, people always ask me which way they could donate or whatever. The super chat button right at the bottom of the chat, you could press that and you could donate that way. Or on the descriptions, if you want to donate through PayPal, there's a link to donate through PayPal on the description. So it'll be appreciated for all of you who do, and if you can't, that's fine also. May the Most High God bless us all. So every now and then I'm going to put my earbuds in, make sure that everything is going smooth and that the stream is coming through. Let it sound clear. All right. Okay, it sounds great. So let us move straight ahead. I'm going to begin with one second here. Here we go. So as we see here, we are, so we already covered, let me go to the top as I go through my slide. We covered the birth of Jesus, the genealogy, Matthew chapter 1 through 17, Luke chapter 3, 23 to 36, 1 Chronicles chapter 3, 10 to 24, right? And just doing a review of what we did before, what we have here is King David. As we see, we got King David here. We got King David here in Matthew's genealogy, Luke's genealogy, and the genealogy in 1 Chronicles. We have King David as the number one progenitor of that Davidic line, or that line from Judah, right? So then who follows him? Solomon and Matthew. But in Luke, we see that Nathan or Natan is following him. And that automatically eliminates the lineage of or the chronology and the genealogy in the book of Luke, because it doesn't follow the pattern that First Chronicles already set. That is the foundation. The genealogy in First Chronicles is the foundation of Melech Dawid, or King David as we know him. And if those other two genealogies, or those other two numbering of the names, do not follow and do not go down in the same order, then they are off, and the foundation is what we have to stand on. So as we looked along, we seen that there were 14 more names in the genealogy of Luke than in Matthew. As we go down in the names, and you could check part 1, as we went down in the names started to differ from First Chronicles chapter 3, and that completely voided those genealogies, because if you cannot get the beginning straight of this man's life for his lineage, you cannot use that as a point of reference, or you cannot use that as any sort of proof of anything. No matter where I'm from or where I'm at, I will always be my father's son, no matter what. That's who I am. I can't stop being my father's son. You understand what I'm saying? So these are things that we have to keep in mind, and we have to understand as to why us, as non-messianics, we do not follow the traditions of the New Testament. We do not follow what the New Testament has to offer. So, like I said, hopefully we could get an understanding. Hopefully we could get us all to understand what is it that's happening and what is it that's going on within this chapter and within the verses that are in these chapters. So we're doing a review. We also seen went through the birth of Christ, how Joseph was espoused to Mary, but she was found of child of the Holy Ghost, and how Joseph sought to put her away privately. We went into Isaiah chapter 7, where you read in the book of Matthew, where it says that that a virgin shall have a son. Behold, a virgin shall be with child and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel. And they try to connect that with Isaiah chapter 7. We proved and we showed that the sign that Isaiah had to see, or that the king Ahaz had to see, was at least, at the minimum, 700 years before even the coming of Christ. So Emmanuel could not have been speaking about Christ, because this was a sign that had to be seen within 65 years, right? 65 years, 65 years, and it would have been impossible for that to have been the birth of Christ, because that Emmanuel would have had to have been born at least 700 years down the line. So these are the things that we covered. Like I said, check out part 1. If you check out part 1, then for part 1, you can see what's going on. And that's where we left off the last time. So at this moment, we're going to check into the historicity of Jesus, where he was born, what the Gospels say about where he was born, and let's see if we could bring some understanding out of this. All right? Let's see if we could bring some understanding out of it. So let's not forget to share. Let's not forget to let people know that we're on live, and that we're doing this thing. So let me see here. Let me just send it out to a couple more people before I get going. And I thank you all for joining us and for being with us and for always supporting me and whatever endeavors that I do, whatever things that I do. I truly, truly appreciate it, and I'm grateful to all of you for being there for me, for looking out for me, looking out for Bait. d.c.b is truly, truly appreciated. I do this because I have love for it. I do this because I feel like our people need to be awakened. Our people been docile and been asleep for such a long time, and I just feel like we need to wake up and understand what is it that's before us. Being blind is being blind, right? And I'm not talking about physically blind, but being blind to this understanding is a choice, because most of us that, and I'm sure most of us that are on, most of us could read, right? Most of us could read and write. So if most of us could read and write, then it is incumbent upon us to get understanding and to get wisdom. So now, enough talking. Let us go to the book of Matthew chapter 2, as you see on the screen. And see Matthew 2 right there. Give me 1 second. We are Matthew 2. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel also. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1 reads, Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east of Jerusalem. So Bethlehem is a city in Judah in the southern kingdom. Says that Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. Now, like I said, Herod was not a fictitious character, but he was a real person that lived, right? But we're going to find out during what time Herod lived, and we're going to find out some other things when they said that this child, this Messiah from the New Testament, this Christ from the New Testament, when he was born. So for that, we need to go to the book of Luke chapter 2, starting from verse 1, and it reads, And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed, right? So Caesar Augustus, he declares a tax on the world. This is not the whole world as we know it today, but this is what they taught to be the world. Their world was what they ruled at that time. The world wasn't what we know as today. So this is for the newcomers. When you think about the new world, he wasn't talking about the Americas, because he didn't rule this side of the world as a, he didn't rule this side of the world. So he was talking about the world that he knew at that time and what he conquered, right? Or what they conquered, what the Romans conquered. This is in parentheses. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. Very important. Keep that in mind, right? The first time was during Herod the king's reign. And this right here, Luke chapter 2 says that this is during Cyrenius or Quirinius. Sometimes you will see that name written with a Q. Quirinius, right? Was governor of Syria. So it says that his birth happened during the time when Herod was king in Judea, or during Quirinius' taxing or census, right? It was a census during that time. And all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth in Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem. So he went into Judah, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house of the lineage of David. So he went there because supposedly there was a decree that while this taxing or this census was going on, that everyone had to go back to the original place of nativity, to the place that they were originally from, right? To be taxed with Mary, his spouse wife, being great with child. His spouse wife being with child. Once again, we tackle this problem of being a spouse, but being pregnant by the Holy Ghost in the first part of this video. So you could go back and check that out. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. So while they were there during the taxation or the census, it came up for the time for her to be delivered. And she brought forth her first son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. So this is where we get the nativity scene from. You know, the Christ in the manger with Mary and Joseph and the three wise men. This is where we get this image from right here, Luke chapter 2. So what we see here is a couple of things, right? It says that Joseph went back to the city of his nativity, right? Because the tax was called, or there was some books say that there was or history say that there was a census being taken. So I'm going to ask you this. If you are from Europe, let's say you lived in Europe till you was 10 years old, and then you moved to the United States of America, right? Or let's say you lived in Europe till you were a working person, till you were 24, 25. You had a job in Europe, you paid taxes, you did everything there. But then you moved to the United States, you became an American, a United States citizen or a resident, or you were working in the United States. Where are you going to pay your taxes? You're going to pay your taxes in the United States. So this is my point. There is no reason for you to go from one city to another if the Romans already are in charge of wherever it is that you're at, right? They could record where you're at, and they could record who you are, right? The reason why they had to bring Joseph and Mary as she was pregnant back to Bethlehem of Judah so that it could coincide with Matthew chapter 2, because that makes no sense, because then it will have her having Jesus in another place, right? And when we look at this, I believe that they went down to Egypt at one point, and then they had to come back. But when we look at this, right, and we understand what is it that's going on, we get an understanding of it. If you are a ruler of an empire, you don't need people to come back to their cities. This is just me. This is just my opinion, right? Of course, it's just my opinion. No one needs to come back to their city to take a census, especially if, let's say like in the United States, you don't have to go back to your original city of birth when they're taking a census in the United States. You basically just sign up the form, or you fill out the form, and whatever city you're living in. It's just as plain as simple as that. So what the writers of this book had to do was put Mary and Joseph back, had to put them in Bethlehem in order for this to go hand in hand with Matthew. You understand what I'm saying? This is what they did. This is what was happening. This is what came to form. And this is the understanding that we see. All right, and that we understand here. So just stay with me and understand what I'm trying to do here. So now we're going to go to the points, because I already written these points out, and we're going to get some understanding. Number one, Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1 shows that Jesus was born during the reign of King Herod. I made that point clear earlier. Then it says, Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7 shows Jesus being born during the time of Cyrenius. Shows Jesus being born during the time when Cyrenius was first made governor of Syria. So Cyrenius was first made governor of Syria, right? So now we look at Herod. We look at his name. By name, Herod the Great, Latin, Herodotus Magnus. So Herodotus is Herod. Magnus means great. Born 73 BCE and lived all the way through March or April 4 BCE. So this is the period of time that Herod lived from 73 to 4 BCE, right? So he lived a total of what? 69 years, if I'm doing the calculation right. So he lived from 73 BCE, right? He was born 73 BCE all the way through March or April 4 BCE is when he died, all right? In Jericho, Judah, that's where he died. Roman appointed king of Judah from, this is Herod. He was a Roman appointed king of Judah from 37 through 4 BCE. So he reigned for about 33 years in Bethlehem, Judah. This is the source, is Encyclopedia Britannica, right? Where I got this whole write-out about Herod. All right, so that's my source. As for his life and when he was born and when he passed away. Point number 3. According to Matthew, Jesus was born near the end of the reign of Herod the Great, thus before 4 BCE. So Jesus had to be born in the period between 73 BCE and 4 BCE because that's the period of time that Herod lived in, right? So remember, when we read Matthew chapter 1, now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judah, in the days of Herod, the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, right? Wise men from the east, those are the 3 wise men looking for the child that was born, the new king of the Jews, so forth and so on. But this child had to be born between 73 BCE to 4 BCE. So now, we have to see and we have to examine when Jesus was born, right? So now as we go to point number 3. According to Matthew, Jesus was born near the end of the reign of Herod the Great, thus before 4 BCE. In Luke chapter 2, verses 1 to 2, Jesus is said to have been born at the time of a census when Quirinius, as you can see here, I have it spelt with the Q-U-I, right? But it's the same as Cyrenius, was governor of Syria, right? So he was born during the time when Quirinius was governor of Syria, another part of the empire. Besides, this part of the empire is north of Israel, besides Bethlehem and Judah, which is south to Syria, right? So Quirinius was a governor, right, of Syria. So his birth is coinciding during these two events when supposedly when Herod was king in Bethlehem, Judah, and when Quirinius or Cyrenius was governor in Syria, right? So now we see here, such a census did occur. So this is the census that occurred, right? Such a census did occur, but in Common Era 6 through 7. So now this is very important. If Herod lived between 73 and 4 BCE, right? He died prior to the turn of the millennium, the new millennium. But the census that Quirinius or Cyrenius had was past the turn of the new century, right? Because we're talking CE 6 or 7. We're talking CE 6 or 7. So now there's a discrepancy. What's the discrepancy? The census didn't happen within the time that King Herod of Judah was alive. So something is off here. You see, history supports what we're doing and what we're saying. And this is not an assault against people that might not know this, but when we read, we edify ourselves. When we research, we get understanding. And these are the things that we lack to do when we are just looking at things from one side of the spectrum. We have to study. So let us move on. It says here, are y'all still with me? Are y'all understanding what I'm bringing forth? Am I being concise? I always ask these questions. Being concise, and am I being clear? Do you understand everything that I'm saying? And make sure that I'm not losing anyone at this point. I'll wait to see what you respond, and then I'll move on if I'm clear thus far. I just want to make sure that I'm clear thus far, because I feel like it's important for us to be clear and to bring understanding to everyone. So just let me know if I'm being clear, if I'm bringing understanding, if everybody is with me, and if everybody is locked in on what is it that I'm saying. Please let me know. I know a lot of this is not new news to any one of you, but this is more so for new people who try to gain understanding. So please let me know if you're hearing everything that I'm saying, and if it's clear to you, and if it's concise, so that I can move on to make sure that you guys are still there and that you understand. Okay, soldier number 1. All right, put the number 1. Thank you. I like to do that to make sure that everyone is on top of it. So here we go. Because this was after Herod's, right? Because this was after, hold on one second. So now, because this was after Herod's death and not in agreement with a possible date of Jesus' baptism, this late date is unlikely. That's from Encyclopedia Britannica. Point number 3, right? Or that last paragraph. That's from Encyclopedia Britannica. That's not from me. They're saying that the two dates are in conflict because one happened 10 years after the other. So how could Jesus have been born during these two period of times when they didn't coincide with each other? So these are things that we have to keep in mind, and we have to see and understand. Point number 4. In other words, the birth of Jesus in the book of Matthew chapter 2 verse 1 would have happened, right? This is when Herod was king in Judah, right? Would have happened at least 10 years before the birth of Jesus, when Herod was king, right? Because Herod, remember, he died in 4 BCE. So it would have happened at least 10 years before the birth of Jesus in the book of Luke, chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. Because Herod the Great died at least 10 years before the census and or taxing during Quirinius' time. At least 10 years before that census or before that taxing. So these are things that we have to see. We don't have to look at things blindly. We don't have to just accept things because it's been passed down to us, and we believe that we just have to accept what is it that's before us. Wrong is wrong, and if you cannot come with a conclusion, or you cannot come to an understanding as to what is it that you're reading or what is it that you're seeing, then as a God-fearing person, you have to come into a decision within your mind that you have to make changes in your life. That's plain and simple. You have to make changes in your life, and you have to get that understanding of Torah. You have to make changes in your life and get that understanding of Torah. I know a lot of what I'm saying is not new to many of you, and that's fine, But this is for those who really don't have understanding, who really are new to this and really don't understand what is it that we're doing, or what is it that's happening. Because people look at us, and when they say, man, y'all don't believe in Jesus, y'all don't believe in Christ, these are the points as to why we don't follow the Christ of the New Testament, why we don't follow that Christ or accept him as even being a prophet, because there's too many conflicts within the book itself. And those are things that we have to keep in mind. It says here, number 5, in Catholicism, it's believed that Jesus Christ was born on December 25th. Now, mind you, the New Testament never gives us a date to the birth of Jesus. Never gives us a date. But Luke chapter 2, 7-8 says that during the birth of Jesus, shepherds were in the fields watching their flocks. In the land of Israel, shepherds will most likely not have their flocks out grazing during the month of December, for it was most likely too cold. So these are things but that's a debatable point. That's a debatable point. People might say, you can't say that, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. But the point at hand is this. And just being objective, like I said, that's a debatable point. But there is nowhere recorded in the New Testament as to when Jesus was born. That is a fact. You're not going to find that in the New Testament. A date recorded. No. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to to share it to your different social medias. Excuse me. I came down with a cold and trying to fight it right now. Yesterday I got wet in that rain, and it was a bit cold. So now we're going to go through the contradictions between Old and New Testament as you see on the screen. Let's first start with the book of John, chapter 13, verse 34, and see what it says. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. So Jesus has given us a new commandment. Now, we understand that the Most High God is a jealous God, and the words that he has given us already are perfect. The words that he's given us in the Torah, the first 5 books, where his laws appear, those words are perfect. So now we have here, now the laws of Jehovah don't allow us to add unto his word or take away from it, as it states in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2. And it reads, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of Jehovah your God, which I command you. So this is explicit, right? And this is very precise what God is telling us. Don't add anything and don't take away from it. So we cannot add a new command or a new commandment to what the Most High God has already left in the old, because that was already perfect, right? So no one has the authority to add a command. All right, so to love one another is not a crime, far from being a crime, but the emphasis on adding to the words of God is the key point in this. You see, we have to understand that the divinity of the creator of heaven and earth is superior to any. The divinity of Jehovah is superior to any. He is God alone. And when he gives us a command and when he gives us a rule and a regulation, that we have to follow that. and that we have to understand that, and that we have to live by that. And those are some of the things that sometimes when we look at the New Testament, it's where people fall short too. All right? So this is what I'm talking about. So these are the contradictions. And by the way, I don't know who told you that we follow the New Testament. We do not follow the New Testament. We're actually showing contradictions between the old and the new, and showing why we don't follow the new, because of so many contradictions between the old and the new, and within the new itself. So maybe you came into the conversation a bit late and you didn't understand because you seen us quoting or speaking verses or passages in the New Testament. Maybe you believe that we follow the new, but we only follow the creator of heaven and earth, Yahweh Zebaot. And unto him alone do we give glory and we give praise. Hallelujah. So here we go. So once again, I'll reiterate Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2. Here we go. Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep my commandments, that you may keep that ye may keep the commandments of Yahweh your God, which I command you. All right. So here we go, because we always got to have them. And here we go. Move. I have to remove the trolls because they come in to troll. What's funny? I never go into anyone else's channel to troll. I let you let people speak what they speak, and they believe what they believe. I'm always one to give respect. I might have an opinion on something, but you have fanatical trolls that come into these different platforms and try to say whatever they say. So there's no problem. So here we go. So how is it that years later a new command could be given after Yahweh said, don't add or diminish from his word, in a book, the New Testament, that Yahweh does not speak out of? So God, in the New Testament, you're not going to hear, thus saith the Lord, like I said earlier. In the New Testament, you're not going to hear, and Yahweh spoke unto Paul, saying, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them. You're not going to hear that, right? You're not going to hear that. So this is very important as to where the word of God is coming from. So here we go. When we look at the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 12, it states, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which Yahweh thy God giveth thee. Right? Honor. And we're going to break down the meaning of that word later, but let's go into the contrast in the New Testament and see what it says. In contrast to that, Let's read what Jesus said in order to become his disciple, what you have to do. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34 says, or verse 26 says, if any man come to me, right, and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Now, this verse is a total contradiction to the laws of the Most High found in the book of Exodus chapter 20, verse 12, where the Most High commands us to honor our parents. Honor, high respect, esteem. Honor, high respect, and esteem. So, in order to be his disciple, in order to be Jesus' disciple, you, as it says here in Matthew chapter 10, verse 26, if any man come to me and hate not his father and his mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. So the opposite of love is hate, right? So when it says, and it said, if he hate not, right? So in other words, if you don't hate them, you can't be my disciple. Now that's plain and simple. There is no dark parables when it comes to Torah. God gives us the Torah and says, I give you the Torah plain and simple so that a person with simple understanding might be able to get it and live, right? So in order to be his disciple, you have to hate everything that you love and put him before everything. That's contradictory to the law of the Most High God in Exodus 20:12, where it says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which Jehovah thy God giveth thee. And not only that, we have other chapters where it speaks about the respect of parents. And we're going to go to them right now as we line up and we see here what's going on. I hope that you're still with me. Here we go here. Exodus 21:15. It reads, and this is explicit when it speaks about parents. Let me read it in Hebrew first. It says, Umake aviu we imo mot yot yumat. And he that smiteth his father or his mother shall be surely put to death. Right? You shall be mote. You shall be put to death. So this is the respect of parent, because parents cannot be disrespected. Parents cannot be disrespected. It's a death penalty to disrespect your parents in any form. It's a death penalty. Let us go now. Let us go now to the book of Exodus 21:17. And he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. If you curse them, and we're not talking about 4-letter words, all right? We're not talking about 4-letter words. Cursing them is like, I hope that so-and-so happens to you. I hope, and I'm just doing the most extreme, I hope that when you go outside that a Mack truck squashes you. And I know that that's extreme and that's funny, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. Cursing is not a 4-letter word, because there is no cursing in a pure language like Hebrew. So cursing is what you wish to happen to them that's wrong. That was the cursing that it was speaking about. Let us go to the book of Leviticus 18:7. The book of Leviticus 18:7 reads, give me a second here. Leviticus 18:7. It reads, says, Eriat avika, we eriat imeka, lo tegale, inka hiu, lo tegale erwata. It says, the nakedness of thy father and the nakedness of thy mother shall thou not uncover. She is thy mother, thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. This is talking about the respect and the honor that you have to have for parents. You understand what I'm saying? It says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long. Honor, respect, revere, esteem. These are all the things that we have to have for our parents, right? And these are the things that we have to keep in mind. And I'm going to go to these precepts so that we understand them. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 3. It reads, Leviticus 19:3. Go right over to the next chapter. Leviticus 19:3 says, ye shall fear every man his mother and his father, and ye shall keep my Shabbatot, my Shabbats, as it say here, my Sabbaths. I am Yehovah your God. So it says here, now in the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 12, it says, honor thy father and thy mother. Here it reverses it. And why it does that, and why many of the people say it, and scholars say why it does that, is to show that there's a same amount of respect you got to have for your mother and for your father, or for your father and your mother. You can't respect one more than the other because you feel like, well, it's my father and he's going to be all right, and he's the one that I have to fear the most. No, or that's my mother, that's the one that raised me up. It says everyone fear their mother and their father, or their father and their mother. And this is very important. And I'm going to go off a little bit from the lesson, because some of us sometimes are not raised up by our fathers. And because our mothers have separated some of us from our fathers, and we do not know what initially happened as to why they were separated, you take on the side of your mother. Naturally, because she raised you up, she struggled with you. Your father might not be in your life. But the minute that he comes into your life and you have knowledge of self, you have to understand that it's a death penalty to disrespect parents, no matter whether or not you feel he was a deadbeat dad. Sometimes we don't understand the circumstances. Sometimes we don't understand what happened in people's lives. But the law is explicit in telling us to honor our father and our mother, and to honor our mother and our father, to have the total ultimate respect for them. And this is why I'm going into all of this, to show that Jesus tells us, right, in the book of Matthew, that in order to be his disciple, you can love them. But honor encompasses love, respect, fear, and all those things. So he's basically telling us to go against the commandments of the Most High God in order to be his disciple. All right? In order to be his disciple. You can't cut it any other way. Cannot cut it any other way. Let us go now to the book of Leviticus chapter 20, starting from verse 9. Leviticus 20, verse 9. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 9 reads, for whatsoever man there be that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. He have cursed his father or his mother, his blood shall be upon him. Ki ish asher yekwalel et aviu we et imo mot yumat aviu we imo quileo damayo bo. His blood shall be upon his head. That's what it says. It says, aviu we imo quelel damao bo. Gonna be upon your head. So we have to be, and the reason why I'm driving these points, right? Because it's very important for us to understand what this man commanded us to do in order to become his disciple. Now, some people are going to say, well, you are misquoting what is being said and the understanding of it. But there is no cut in the corner. If you hate not, meaning if you love them, right? That's what he's really saying. If you love them, then you can't be my disciple. But God tells us to honor. Now, when we talk about honor, honor means love and respect, right? So it encompasses all those things. So we have to be careful as what is it that we do when it comes to our parents. And that's all I'm really trying to do, is to drive that point across. Here we go here. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 16. Deuteronomy 5:16. Deuteronomy 5:16 reads, Thou shalt not murder, neither shalt thou commit adultery, neither shalt thou steal, neither shalt thou bear false witness against thy neighbor. Actually, it's 15. I'm sorry. It reads, Honor thy father and thy mother, as Jehovah thy God commanded thee, that thy days may be long, and that it may go well with thee upon the land which Jehovah thy God giveth thee. So that is a reiteration of Exodus chapter 20. It's just going over the 10 commandments. All right, so let us go now. And I'm just crossing all my T's and dotting all my I's. Deuteronomy 21. Deuteronomy 21. Deuteronomy 21. It reads, (18 and 19). If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son that will not hearken to the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and though they chasten him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him out unto the elders of his city and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, This our son is stubborn and rebellious. He doth not hearken to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shalt thou put away the evil from the midst of thee, and all Israel shall hear and fear. So this shows the power that parents have over children, that they could cause you to be put to death because of your ways and the things that you do. So the respect of parents is paramount in the laws of God. The respect of parents is very high in the laws of God. We have to respect our parents. So why is Jesus telling us that in order to be his disciple, if you hate not your parents and your brother, your sisters, and everyone, you could not be his disciple? These are the things that we have to question about the New Testament. And these are the things that we have to understand. All right, brothers and sisters. So I hope that I drove that point across clearly. Now I'm going to go back to what is it that we were discussing before. So now we're going back to here. Hopefully we could stay on top of this. So, all right, let's examine some more verses and let us see more of the contradictions between Old and New Testaments. Let us now look at the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 32 to 37. It reads, Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. So, for most part, we Old Testament Israelites will fall under that, because we do not confess in the name of Jesus. We do not put his name in any prayer. we do not testify to him for anything. So basically what he's saying, that because we do not confess to him, that he will not present us before, quote unquote, the Most High God, right? So here we go. All right, so I will ask the brother in the room to please don't interrupt the teaching that's happening. Um, I'm sure that you have a lot to say, but I'll ask you kindly to please don't interrupt the teaching, because there is a lesson going on, and there are people trying to listen to what is it that is being brought forth, and you making comments is really interrupting those who are trying to lock in and focus on what is it that's being said. All right, so I appreciate if you would stop doing those things, and allow the people that are in the room, because it's not a side teaching. We don't need a side teaching. I'm already doing a teaching. So I'll ask you kindly to please stop putting all the comments that it's totally has nothing to do to what is it that we're doing. It's like you're trying to bring a point across, but what we're doing here is really trying to teach the new people something that they might not know, right? And we're keeping things in context, and we're trying to bring an understanding to people. So here it is. Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. So we will fall under the category of those that wouldn't be presented to the Most High God according to Jesus before heaven, because we do not confess in his name. We don't call on his name. We don't pray in his name. We don't put him at the end of all of our prayers. So we will be out of that group, right? Verse 34 goes on and it says, think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. So once again, he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Not even God commands you to do that. God tells us to honor your father and your mother. Those are the first people that taught you anything. So we can't even put our hands on them. We can't curse them. And if they decide that we are doing too much, we becoming gluttonous, we becoming disrespecters, they could bring us disrespectful. They could bring us before the judges, and the judges could determine that we need to be stoned. They have the power of our lives in their hands when we're living with them, if we are a rebellious child. So how is it that you got to love someone more? How is it that you got to love someone more than them? God never commanded us that in the Old Testament. These are things that we have to keep in mind. He that loveth father or mother, verse 37, I'm going to reiterate that. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Let that sink in for a second. Let that sink in for a second. Let us understand. Let that sink in for a second. You cannot be his disciple if you love your mother and father more than him. Some of these verses are in total contrast to what the law of the Most High commands us. The Most High doesn't need us to acknowledge anyone besides him. This is clear. This is replete through the Old Testament that the Most High God is a jealous God, that Yah is a jealous God, that he doesn't want his glory to go to another, right? Because he is a jealous God and he is one. Exodus chapter 20, verse 5, right? Exodus chapter 34, verse 14. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. And let's see what those verses say. It's better for me to go into a book and for you guys to open up a book. Go to Exodus chapter 20, verse 5. Excuse me, brothers and sisters, with this cold. Exodus chapter 20, verse 5. You shall not bow down to them. Let's take it from verse 4. You shall not make for yourself any idol, whether in the form of anything that is in heaven above, or that's on the earth beneath, or that's in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor worship them. For I, Yahweh, your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the iniquity of parents to the third and the fourth generation of those who reject me, but showing steadfast love to the thousands generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. Right? You shall not bow down to them, nor worship them, for I, Yahweh, your God, am one. So God is a jealous God. He doesn't want his glory to go to another. Exodus 34, verse 14. Now I'm reading a different book than probably what the verses will say. So I will let you know the adjustment. But no matter what book I read, it will be all in the same vein. Verse 14. For you shall worship no other God before Yahweh. Let me reread that. Verse 14. For you shall worship no other God, because Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Say his name is jealous. He is a jealous God. Deuteronomy 6:4. And I could tell you what that says. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. God is one. Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad. God is one. We have to get this understanding, brothers and sisters. We have to know and understand that the Most High God is a jealous God. Keith Jackson, it just seemed like the conversation was just going too far left, and I just wanted to make sure that that we stay on point with what is it that's being brought forth, because there are new people who listen, and sometimes when we have a text that's distracting, it kind of takes away from the understanding of what's being said. You guys started going into talking about the book of Ezekiel. We're not even on that pattern. We're like following one pattern, and I just didn't want the people to be distracted. But if you guys were carrying on and you said that it was a conversation that was in context and that it was about what we were talking about, then it's fine. Okay? I take your word for it. Let me see here. So here, Jesus also says here that he has come to set a man against his father and a daughter against her mother. This is in total opposition to what the Most High said that he would do. If we look at the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verses 22 to 24, It reads, starting from verse 22. Remember ye the law of Moses my servant, which I command unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Jehovah, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Once again, these verses show that there is a total contradiction by Jesus to the laws and statutes and commandments of Yah, because it was commanded that Elijah the prophet will come back and turn the hearts of the fathers to the sons and the hearts of the daughters to the mothers. Right? Fathers to the children, the heart of the children to their fathers. Matthew chapter 10, verse 35 states, for I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. So that's a total contradiction to what the Most High God left with the prophet to tell the children of Israel. So now we're talking about several, we're talking about some hundreds of years have gone past, and now a new word comes down that the fathers is going to be set against sons, and sons going to be set against fathers, and that mother will be set against daughter. So these are all the things that we have to keep in mind, and we have to understand these are things that are leading us astray and that are contradictory to what the Most High God already left on record, right? These are things that are contradictory, and it's not that you're trying to discredit something, but the thing is that you want to bring understanding so that people will get understanding. And this is why we do not follow the New Testament. This is why you have to understand why we don't follow the New Testament, because of what's in there. Is littered with contradictions of the old, and the old is the foundation. Let us continue to delve deeper into these contradictions. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 21 to 22 reads, for even hereunto were ye called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us as an example that ye shall follow his steps, who did no sin, neither was God found in his mouth. Romans chapter 5, verse 6 through 10 reads, for when we were yet without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet peradventure for a good man some will even dare to die. But God commandeth his love towards us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more then, being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. For verse 10, for if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his son, much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. John 3:16, the famous passage, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. So these are the different passages that speak about God giving his son as a sacrifice for humanity or for mankind. And as some Israelites say, it's speaking just about the children of Israel. It's not speaking about the world. When it's talking about the world, it's speaking about the children of Israel and the Israelites at that time. Whatever you want to say. These three passages are totally contradictory to what we find in the book of the law of Moses. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 16 says, and I say it clearly, the father shall not be put to death for the children, neither shall the children be put to death for the fathers. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. Everyone is put to death for his own sin. Everyone. So even if it seemed like someone dies for someone, we all have our own baggage. We all have our own stuff that we die for. That's what we have to understand. We all have our own stuff that we die for. All right? We all have our own stuff that we die for. We have to keep that in mind, brothers and sisters. We have to understand Torah. We have to understand the word of the creator of heaven and earth. Brother Soldier writes, Lord, we shall be saved, but yet they all got murdered, temple destroyed, and losing our land. Right. After all of that, he died for our sins. And after him, it should be no more sin then. But right after that, we go into captivity. We went into the worst captivity of the history of our people. We became servants to everybody in the earth, and we hated by everyone in the earth. So what type of salvation is that? But this is why they needed to come up with a resurrection concept. Because you see, once he came, he didn't fulfill what the Messiah was supposed to fulfill. And he didn't fulfill all the things that were supposed to be in place, right? That utopian world. Because remember, when the Messiah or the Davidic king comes back, right? And I'm only using Messiah because that's what people understand. I don't really use those terms, but this is what people understand. But when you read in the Tanakh, it says that all people shall flow into the top of the mountain to the house of the God of Israel, right? And from there they should call upon his name. And it also speaks about a time when lions should sleep with sheep, and a child should go play in a snake hole. Right? And nothing is going to happen to him. That's the time when the Messiah will come back. So you see, when Jesus came, none of those things happened. So they had to come with a resurrection story so that it could fit the bill. So the new coming or the resurrection is when all these other things are supposed to happen. But the point that most Christians do not get is that he already came and left. And what happened and what was supposed to happen was we were supposed to live happily ever after, and that did not happen. Even 2,000 years later, that has not happened. So these are things that we have to keep in mind, brothers and sisters. These are things that we have to understand. I don't say this to be derogatory, but I say this so that we could be enlightened. It says here, the laws of the Most High are explicit and clear. Everyone dies for their own sin. So the concept of Yah sending someone on earth to die for the sins of humanity is preposterous. And it goes totally against what Yah, ordered. Also to show that the books in the Tanakh speak the same word of the Most High, let us look into the book of Ezekiel 18:1-4. We already went through the Torah, right? The Torah was Deuteronomy 24:16. Now we're going to go into the prophet and see what the prophet says. Starting from verse 1. Ezekiel 18:1-4. The word of Yahweh came unto me again, saying, What mean ye that ye use this proverb concerning the land of Israel, saying, The fathers have eaten sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge? As I live, saith Yahweh God, ye shall not have occasion any more to use this proverb in Israel. Behold, all souls are mine. As the soul of the Father, so also the soul of the Son is mine. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. That's plain and simple. Everyone dies for their own sin. No one could die for everyone. Even in Christianity, they tell you that everyone bears their own cross, right? So why is it that the word is changed up now? If you bear your own cross, that means that you carry your own baggage. You carry your own sin. No one could die for your sin. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be even. It wouldn't be right. There is no confusion as to what the Creator has commanded. As for the Most High loving the world, let us now go to the book of Malachi, chapter 1, verses 1-3, because that's another lie, that God loved the world, right? God didn't love the world, and we're going to prove it right here. the burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith Yahweh. He's talking about the children of Israel, that he has loved us. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? So we being ungrateful. Oh, when did you love us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother? That's a rhetorical question. Of course he was, saith Yahweh. Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. So I say this. Where do we get the concept that God is just love, love? That this great king is just a love God? Where do we get that from? Where do we get that understanding from? Where do we get that from? As the video is back up again with me speaking, where do we get that concept from? Where do we get that understanding from? God didn't say that he loved the world, for God so loved it. He didn't say he loved the world. He said he hated Esau. Esau was a nation of people that came out of one of his servants. And God said he hated them. So where do we get the concept that God loved the world? God did not love the world, brothers and sisters. God did not love the world. God didn't do things for us to be confused, right? God didn't do things for us to be at odds one with another, but God did things for us to have understanding and to see and to understand what is it that he wants us to do. All right? Someone writes, my thing is the Old Testament was created by Hebrews. How can someone of a whole different people had a part two to something they had no part in creating of the first? This is where you get conversion and people that want to adapt a way of life, right? And this is where you get that from. So they, in order to make their book valid, it's like Constantine changing the Sabbath day from the Sabbath day that we supposed to keep to a first day Sabbath, right? Because they were pagans, but they started, remember the early Christians used to keep the Sabbath the way that we did. You know, no cooking, no preparing anything on the Sabbath or anything like that. But in order for it to fit them and to fit what they wanted, they had to change up certain things to make it more pleasant for those pagan people who didn't want to accept Christianity at that time, because they were pagan. They worshiped the sun, moon, and stars. These are all the things that they did. You get what I'm saying? So this is the understanding that we have to get. The New Testament is a total contradiction to the Torah of the Most High God. Now, let me not say total, because there's certain things in the New Testament that come out of Torah, and I'm not going to say that that's wrong. All right? I'm not going to say that that's wrong. I will not say that that's wrong. I will not say that that's wrong. So those are things that we need to keep in our mind. And those are things that we need to understand. Go ahead. So Borasta wants us to go to the book of Psalms 83, verses 3-5. It reads, for lo, thine enemies are in an uproar. They that hate thee have lifted up their head. They hold crafty converse against thy people, and take counsel against thy treasured ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. And that's what the nations did. That was part of the transatlantic slave trade. That was part of taking and stripping us of our way of lives. All those nations conspired, from the Arabic nations to the Europeans. They conspired. Why? Because we're the chosen ones of God. Why would they want us to be up? Why would they want us to be on top? You get what I'm saying? So therefore, it was easier for them to tear us down and to bring us down. All right. So these are the things that we need to understand. These are the things that we need to know. These are the things that we need to get understanding of. All right. These are the things that we need to get understanding of. So we see through history. I mean, the Most High God told us to remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy, right? The Most High God told us to have a holy convocation. I mean, I don't know how much clearer you want me. It says, whereas it says, I mean, we don't call our place of worship a church. You know, I understand that a church is a place where people congregate, but our places of worship, we either call them temples, camps. Some people call them camps. Some people call them synagogues, whatever. So those are the things that we need to understand. So once again, I thank each and every one of you for being here with us. You know, those of you that come on and want to listen. For those of you that would like to make a donation, you can make a donation by hitting the super chat button on the bottom of the chat. You can also in the descriptions you can hit the there is what do you call it, a link for PayPal if you would like to do it that way. And everything that you do for us is highly appreciated, or for me is highly appreciated. I'm really thankful for having this platform to be able to communicate with my people, to be able to enlighten some of you that might have not known some of these things. And some of you that already know these things, you know, it's good sometimes to refresh the memory and to bring back things to remembrance and to try to get things going again. So all your donations, your prayers, everything is appreciated. I really, thank each and every one of you for being here. Dennis McMillan, shalom. Thank you for joining us. And I'm really, really appreciative of everything that all of you do, that you take your time and your effort to listen to me. I know some of you are missing your football or whatever to sit down and listen to me, and I know some of you are on the boycott, so it doesn't really mean much to y'all. So once again, thank you for all that you do for me, all that you do for the channel. I really appreciate everything that you do. Stay tuned in. I'm going to try to continue to do this every Sunday, maybe make it a serious what you don't learn in Sunday school, right? I'm going to try to keep it going that way, something of that magnitude, what we don't learn in Sunday school, and that will keep us